A millionaire takes a homeless woman to live with him, but never imagined what she would do next. Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching the video from. We love getting to know our viewers. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more exciting stories. Enjoy the story and see you soon. The city pulsed like a racing heart, with cars speeding through the streets and people, most of whom seemed to walk aimlessly. In the midst of all the hustle, Clara was a discreet but undeniably unique presence. With worn clothes and messy hair, she seemed oblivious to the chaos around her. Each day, she wandered the streets, searching for scraps to survive, but there was something about her that caught the eye. Perhaps it was her unshakable calm, the gleam in her eyes suggesting a life of mysteries yet to be revealed. It was a day like any other when she passed by the corner bakery. The sweet smell of fresh bread wasn't enough to pull her away from her harsh reality. But in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Vicente, a tall, well-dressed man with a demeanor that suggested he knew exactly what he wanted from life, watched her as she crossed the street. He was used to business meetings, high-level conferences, but Clara's laid-back gaze held him as if she were the most interesting thing he had ever seen. Vicente wasn't the type to worry about charity, but something in that gaze stirred an urgency within him. He knew Clara wasn't like the other people he saw on the streets. She had something that couldn't be touched, but it could be felt in the air, as if the wind had something to say about her. Without thinking too much, Vicente followed her for a few blocks until he caught up with her in a quiet square. Cautiously approaching, he greeted her. Clara watched him with a look of distrust, but something about Vicente's manner made her listen to his words. "You're in trouble, aren't you?" Vicente asked with a kind smile. "I can help you." Clara hesitated. Vicente's tone wasn't that of a common man. He seemed genuine, but still she remained silent, preferring to look down. However, the silence between them was broken by a brief and unexpected offer. "I have a house, a place where you can rest, live in peace, if you want, of course." Clara raised her eyes and for the first time looked directly at Vicente. Something in his gaze told her she still didn't know if she could trust him, but she also didn't have much to lose. After a few seconds of reflection, she simply said, "I accept." Clara's life, which until then had been nothing more than moving through the shadows of the city, began to change at that moment. Vicente took her to his mansion, where she was welcomed with all the comfort and luxury she had never imagined. The first weeks were strange for Clara. She felt out of place, almost like a stranger in this new world of sophistication and perfection. However, little by little, she adapted, discovering that life could be more than just a series of hardships and disappointments. Vicente's family welcomed her with open arms. His wife, Mariana, was a warm and friendly woman who quickly became Clara's friend. The couple's children, energetic teenagers, immediately liked Clara, fascinated by her exotic beauty and calm presence. But it was Helena, Vicente's sister, who didn't seem so enchanted with the arrival of the new resident. Helena, always alert and perceptive, quickly noticed there was something unusual about Clara. Though her charm and intelligence were undeniable, Helena couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this woman than she let on. Something didn't fit with the perfect image Clara projected. While Clara began to feel at home, Helena felt her discomfort growing. She knew she couldn't trust a woman who, no matter how charming and enchanting she was, had something in her eyes that didn't make her feel completely safe. And so, Clara's life at Vicente's mansion began to take shape. To some, she was the picture of redemption. To others, an enigma to be unraveled. The luxury of Vicente's mansion was undeniable. Every corner seemed carefully planned, with sophisticated design furniture and paintings by renowned artists adorning the walls. Clara, now accustomed to the refined surroundings, moved gracefully and easily through the halls, as though she had always belonged there. She had won the affection of everyone in the house, and her natural charm made anyone who crossed her path feel at ease in her presence. However, there was a pair of eyes watching her with a careful and doubtful gaze. Helena's. Helena, Vicente's older sister, was a woman of sharp intelligence and eyes capable of noticing the smallest details. Though her life was comfortable and seemingly worry-free, she could never shake the uneasy feeling. To her, Clara wasn't the savior angel everyone thought she was. There was something about the woman, something in the lines of her story that didn't quite fit. In the following days, Helena tried to get closer to Clara, observing her more closely, asking small questions here and there, trying to learn more about the girl's past. Clara, in turn, always responded evasively. She spoke of her childhood with a lightness that seemed unsettling for someone who had lived in such difficult conditions. She never mentioned her family, friends, or any other personal connections other than a vague, "I've always been alone." Clara's mysterious behavior only fueled Helena's distrust. What did the woman really want? Why did she never talk about her life before Vicente? The suspicion grew with each passing day, and Helena couldn't ignore the signs. Something wasn't right. One quiet afternoon, while the family gathered in the living room, Helena watched Clara sitting at the table, focused on a book. Something in Clara's posture, the way she smiled almost enigmatically, bothered her. Helena quietly approached, trying to listen to what she was murmuring to herself. Clara, seemingly unaware of her presence, whispered words that Helena could barely understand. "Everything is falling into place. Just a little longer." Helena stepped back, her heart racing. What she had heard seemed harmless, but there was something strange, something threatening in that expression. She felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Perhaps it was just her paranoid mind, but she couldn't help wondering, was Clara hiding something? In the following days, Helena continued to watch Clara more closely. She couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was waiting for something, as if she were on the verge of carrying out some plan, something no one else could see. Helena decided to investigate further. She began to discreetly research Clara's life, but the more she searched, the more she came up against a wall of silence. No information, no clue about the woman's past. Clara seemed to have no history. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Helena decided to confront Vicente. The conversation was relaxed, with everyone laughing and talking about the latest news in the city. But Helena's gaze remained fixed on Clara, who was chatting animatedly with Mariana, Vicente's wife. "Vicente, do you know where Clara comes from?" Helena asked, almost casually. Vicente looked at her with surprise. "Of course, Helena. She's been through a lot, but she's doing well now. I helped her because she needed a chance, and I'm glad I brought her into our home." Helena furrowed her brow. "But there's nothing else about her? Don't you find it strange that no one knows anything about her past?" Vicente smiled condescendingly. "You're so skeptical, Helena. It's not good to judge someone before you really get to know them." Helena felt a lump in her throat but didn't give up. "I just want to make sure she's here for genuine reasons." Visibly irritated, Vicente looked away. "You're being paranoid. Clara is our friend now, and you should be kinder to her." As Helena withdrew, her mind was racing. Everyone was blinded, enchanted by Clara's perfection, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Time passed, and the tension between her and Clara only grew. Helena was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant losing the trust of her family. The tension between Helena and Clara reached its peak. Every gesture Clara made seemed to be followed by a careful look from Helena, and every word Clara spoke seemed to be analyzed, deciphered. However, The mysterious woman knew how to keep her facade intact. She smiled effortlessly, spoke softly, and never allowed herself to show any weakness. It was a rainy afternoon when everything changed. The sound of raindrops hitting the mansion windows seemed to amplify the sense of claustrophobia that enveloped Helena. She had already tried to investigate more about Clara's past, but her attempts had been in vain. There were no documents, no records, not even a simple letter or photograph that could offer any clues. Clara seemed to exist in a bubble, a person with no history, no past. Helena decided to act on her own. If she couldn't uncover anything from outside the house, perhaps she could somehow get answers from within it. She took advantage of a trip to the market to discreetly ask acquaintances who might have heard something about the woman now occupying such an important part of Vicente's life. It was at the local market that by chance Helena encountered an elderly woman, the owner of a small antique shop, who seemed to know more than she let on. She was adjusting some objects on a shelf when Helena approached her. "Excuse me, ma'am, but do you know a woman named Clara? She lives in the mansion nearby with the millionaire Vicente." The woman looked enigmatically at Helena, as if evaluating her before responding. "Clara?" she repeated, shaking her head slowly. "That girl isn't who you think she is. I've heard of her for a few years, but I'm not sure it would be wise to say more." Helena furrowed her brow. "What do you know about her? Please, anything could help." The woman hesitated, as if torn between speaking and remaining silent. Finally, she lowered her voice and leaned in closer. "Clara. She didn't come from the street by chance. She has a story that involves more pain than you can imagine. But I won't say more, not here and not now." Helena's heart raced. She had never imagined the woman would give such a vague response, but there was something there, a clue she couldn't let slip away. The elderly woman, however, quickly pulled away, as if afraid of being overheard. Before Helena could press further, she saw the woman disappear among the shelves, taking with her the only hint that Clara in some way had a dark past. On the way back to the mansion, Helena was more determined than ever. She now knew that there was something more, something that Vicente and everyone around him were ignoring. Clara wasn't just a woman with a mysterious past. She had a secret, something that, if revealed, could change everything. When she got home, the rain had slowed, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger. Clara was in the garden, as always, in a position that almost seemed mystical under the soft lights of the house. Helena observed from a distance, studying the woman with a different gaze now. There was something strange about that perfect face, that enchanting smile. Then something unusual happened. Clara looked directly at Helena, as if she had felt the weight of her gaze. Their eyes met for a moment, and Helena, for a brief instant, had the sensation that Clara knew exactly what she was thinking, as if, somehow, Clara had read her mind. Not knowing what to do with the feeling that something was about to happen, Helena entered the house and went up to her room, where she spent hours sifting through old documents, trying to find more clues. But nothing seemed to be enough. Clara was becoming more captivating, more perfect in everyone's eyes, and Helena felt more isolated. However, that night, something happened that no one expected. During a quiet dinner, when the family was gathered in the grand dining room, Clara seemed more relaxed than ever. The wine flowed, conversations were lively, and everything seemed fine. But Helena, with her restless mind, couldn't take her eyes off Clara. There was something in her posture, something in the way she observed everyone around her, that unsettled her. The night went on normally until, suddenly, Clara stood up from the table with a vague excuse. Everyone continued talking, but Helena couldn't ignore the strange feeling that overtook her. Without anyone noticing, she stood up and quietly followed the direction of the corridor where Clara had disappeared. It was then that by chance, Helena heard Clara's voice. She was talking to herself, but her words were loaded with something deep and threatening. "It's almost over. Tomorrow, everyone will be out of my way." Helena froze, the blood draining from her face. What did that mean? Who was Clara talking about? Why was she saying such things? She was planning something, and Helena knew she needed to act fast. She didn't know exactly what, but her instincts told her that something terrible was about to happen. Without hesitation, Helena rushed back to the dinner, where an idea was forming in her mind. She had to stop whatever it was that Clara was planning. The atmosphere in the mansion was heavy, as if the house itself was aware that something was coming. The tension between Helena and Clara only grew, but now it wasn't just distrust. It was the visceral feeling that something very bad was about to happen. Clara's words, whispered that night in the corridor, echoed in Helena's mind. "It's almost over. Tomorrow everyone will be out of my way." Helena couldn't ignore what she had heard. She felt that the woman in front of her was hiding a dark plan, something that no one else seemed to notice. Clara's beauty and charm had captivated everyone except her. Helena knew that, no matter how hard she tried, no one else would believe her suspicions. They thought she was just being difficult, a cynical woman incapable of seeing the goodness that Clara supposedly represented. But Helena had something else in mind. She needed to act before it was too late. She stood up from the table with a calm demeanor, but inside she was in a frenzy. During dinner, Clara appeared so at ease, so integrated into that luxurious world, that it was hard for anyone to imagine that she could have other intentions. Everyone was busy with their conversations and laughter. But Helena knew that this was just a disguise, a carefully rehearsed act. She made her way to the kitchen, where she found the waiter who usually served the meal. With a subtle gesture, she asked him to swap the wine glasses of Vicente and his wife, Mariana. She didn't know exactly what Clara's plan was, but one thing was clear. She wanted to do something with the wine, and Helena wasn't going to let that happen. With Mariana's glass carefully swapped and the glasses returned to the table, Helena felt a small sense of relief. It was a risk, yes, but if something was really being plotted, she would do anything to stop it. When dinner continued, everyone toasted as usual. The clink of glasses echoed in the lit room, and the tension Helena felt seemed to grow with every second. She watched carefully as Mariana raised her glass to her lips, taking a sip of wine. Everything seemed normal until a few minutes later, the atmosphere changed. Mariana began coughing violently. Her face turned pale, and she appeared to be struggling to breathe. "Mariana, are you okay?" Vicente exclaimed, quickly standing up from the table. Everyone stood up in panic, trying to understand what was happening. Vicente's wife collapsed to the floor, her body convulsing alarmingly. The scene was a nightmare, and chaos immediately took over the mansion. Someone called an ambulance, but the situation was getting more and more serious. As others ran in all directions, Helena remained silent, watching from a distance, as if she were seeing everything from the outside. Mariana was taken to the hospital, and, with the night already falling, everyone was devastated by the news. Vicente's wife had not survived and had passed away during the night. Helena, unable to hide the pain from the loss, could no longer maintain her composure. At the moment when everyone was stunned and searching for answers, she knew it was time to reveal what she had discovered. The truth about Clara. She gathered her courage and went to Vicente, who was sitting in a corner with his head in his hands, lost in lament. It was time to speak. "Vicente, I knew something was wrong. Clara, she was planning this. She wanted to kill all of us." Vicente looked at her in disbelief. "What are you saying, Clara? She wouldn't do that." Helena felt a chill run down her spine. "She poisoned the wine, Vicente. I switched the glasses before it was too late. Mariana was the victim, but if it wasn't for me, everyone would have fallen." Silence filled the room. Vicente seemed lost in his own thoughts, processing Helena's words. He didn't want to believe it. He couldn't understand how this could be possible. Clara had been a vital part of his life in the past months. How could he have been so naive? Helena, now more determined than ever, explained what she had overheard Clara say the previous night. The conversation, the cryptic words, everything fit together. Clara wasn't here out of kindness or a simple desire for help. There was something much darker behind her presence in the house: revenge. When they finally confronted Clara, she didn't try to deny it. Her gaze was cold, without remorse, as if she already knew this moment would come. And in a low, controlled tone, she revealed what everyone feared. Yes, I was planning this. This plan was devised months ago, but I didn't expect someone to be so perceptive. I thought you would all be easily manipulated. She paused, looking directly at Vicente before continuing. I am Clara, but that's not my name. I am the daughter of a man you destroyed, Vicente. And now I finally have the opportunity to avenge his death. Helena watched in silence, shock overwhelming her body. What Clara was saying was unbelievable. She was here to get revenge, not for any random reason, but for something personal, something Vicente didn't even know. Clara's past had been shrouded in mystery, but now it was slowly unraveling. The revelation left everyone stunned, speechless. The kindness Clara seemed to exude had been nothing but a facade. The revenge plan was underway, and all of this was happening under the blind eyes of those who trusted her. Clara's revelation left everyone reeling. Vicente, more than anyone, was in shock. The woman he had placed so much trust in, who had seemed to become part of his family, was now standing before him, exposing a secret he could never have imagined. The pain of knowing his wife had died so tragically, the victim of a cruel plan, combined with the discovery that Clara was not who she said she was, left Vicente feeling groundless. Helena, for her part, felt a mix of relief and outrage. She knew something was wrong with Clara, but she had never imagined the story would be so dark. What could justify such a macabre revenge plan? What had happened in the past for Clara to go this far? Clara stood impassively as everyone processed her words. She seemed unfazed by the shock she caused. On the contrary, there was a disturbing calmness in her expression. Finally, after a long silence, she began to speak, as if telling a distant and forgotten story. You wonder why I did this, don't you? Why I wanted to destroy all your lives. All I wanted was justice, justice for my father's death. Clara's voice sounded like a cold whisper, but her eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity. Helena and Vicente, now fully attentive, couldn't look away. My father. He was a simple man, but with principles. When Vicente and his family destroyed him, when he lost everything he had built, I swore revenge. I swore I would make everyone pay for the pain he suffered. And now, after all this time, I am finally here, fulfilling my promise. Vicente seemed to be hearing a nightmare. I have no idea what you're talking about. I never caused harm to a simple man. How can you say this? Clara smiled, but there was something cruel in her smile. You don't remember? Of course not. You don't remember what you did to throw my father into misery. You don't remember what you did to destroy his life, our life. You stole everything he had, but you didn't pay, and I won't allow you to continue living as if nothing ever happened. The anger in her voice was palpable, and her words seemed to cut through the air, leaving everyone present immersed in a thick silence. Clara stood up and walked to the window, looking out into the dark night. At that moment, it seemed as if she was allowing herself to relive every second of that past pain. My father was deceived by you, Vicente. He trusted you, and you destroyed everything. The company he built, the life he worked so hard to create, all of it went down because of you. He died alone, with no one to defend his honor. and you went on with your life as if nothing had happened." She turned again, her eyes now fixed on Vicente, and an expression of pure determination overtook her face. "I just wanted you to know that by losing your wife, you lost much more than you realize. I didn't want to kill anyone, but you forced me to do this, and now I can't go back." Vicente, now with his mind in turmoil, took a few steps back. He was lost. His world, which until that moment seemed so stable, so immune to the problems others faced, was now crumbling before his eyes. How could he have caused such pain without even realizing it? Helena, despite all the anger and distrust she felt toward Clara, couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Clara's story, though distorted by her desire for revenge, was full of pain. It was the kind of pain that changed people, that made them do unthinkable things. "So you really killed my wife because of this?" Vicente asked, his voice low and full of disbelief. Clara didn't respond immediately. She just looked at him, as if considering whether or not to offer more explanations. After a moment, she approached him with a coldness that made the air in the room feel even colder. "I didn't kill her. It was fate. You didn't understand, Vicente. I never wanted to kill anyone, but I knew something needed to happen for you to finally see what you've done, for you to feel in some way the pain my father felt." Guilt began to consume Vicente. He was starting to understand, in an agonizing way, that the death of his wife was, in some sense, the reflection of his own actions in the past. He had never imagined that the consequences of his choices could have the power to destroy someone's life so thoroughly, but now he was faced with the reality that his mistakes were coming at an extremely high price. Helena, amidst the chaos of her own conflicting feelings, looked at Clara. She didn't know what to think. The pain the woman felt was clear, but that didn't justify what she had done. She had manipulated everyone around her, deceived even Vicente, and now she was willing to destroy an entire life just for revenge. Clara's plan had been meticulously crafted, and tragedy had been a price she was willing to pay. But what Clara didn't know was that she was also losing something important, her humanity. In her pursuit of vengeance, she had become someone unrecognizable, someone consumed by pain and rage. As the silence hung in the room, Vicente finally stood up. His expression was empty, as though he were dealing with the loss not only of his wife, but of something even deeper. "You will have to pay for this, Clara," he said, his voice trembling, "and I will do whatever it takes to make sure you pay." But Clara just looked at him with a dark gaze, and before leaving the room, she murmured one last thing. "I've already paid, Vicente. Now it's your turn." After Clara's revelation, Vicente's house seemed colder than ever. The silence that took over the hallways, the rooms, and even the garden reflected the sudden and irreversible change in the family dynamics. The mourning for Mariana's death, coupled with the shocking revelation about Clara, left everyone aimless. Vicente, though lost and stunned, was still trying to process the magnitude of everything that had happened. But it was Helena who, silently, took control of the situation. Though everyone around her was immersed in pain and despair, Helena knew that somehow she had to be the anchor. She had always been seen as the difficult one, the one who questioned everything and everyone. But now she felt that she had finally the responsibility to guide the family through this nightmare. When no one else seemed to know what to do, it was Helena who had to have the courage to act. In the following days, Helena dedicated herself to trying to understand what Clara really wanted and how she could, in some way, protect the rest of the family. She didn't know where to start, but she felt she had to learn more about Clara's past, about the true identity of the woman who had so successfully infiltrated their lives. She visited the house where Clara lived, now empty, and found clues that revealed more than she had imagined. What began as a simple curiosity turned into a relentless investigation. In the files she found, there were records that helped her understand better what Clara had been through and how the tragedy of her life had shaped her. With each step she took, Helena discovered more about the woman who, until then, had seemed perfect. Clara had become a true manipulator, a professional at hiding her pain and her need for revenge beneath a facade of sympathy and kindness. Helena knew that to understand Clara, she would need to look beyond her actions and try to see the deeper motivations. Meanwhile, Clara was isolated. She knew she could no longer trust anyone in that house, and her frustration with everything that had happened consumed her slowly. The revenge had taken a significant step, but the pain of losing control, of being unmasked, was a price she hadn't anticipated. Vicente's family no longer saw her as someone kind, someone deserving of a second chance. She knew her life was about to change forever. Vicente, for his part, tried to maintain normalcy, though it was an almost impossible task. The loss of Mariana had left an indelible mark, and Clara's constant presence made him feel even more guilty. He knew she was behind everything, but her obsession with revenge seemed so deep that he couldn't see the solution to the problem. Then one night, while everyone was gathered for a simple dinner, Helena, with her sharp gaze, noticed something. It was an almost imperceptible sensation, but something wasn't right. Clara was more distant, colder, and in her gaze there was a disturbing calmness, as if she already knew what was about to happen. She observed Clara from afar, noticing her calm expression, as though she were preparing for something. Suddenly, as if she had sensed that Helena's attention was on her, Clara looked directly into her eyes and smiled. It was an enigmatic smile, a mix of challenge and satisfaction. Helena couldn't help but shiver. It was as though Clara was giving a final silent warning. She wasn't finished yet. At that moment, Helena knew that something else was about to happen. She still didn't know exactly what, but whatever it was, she was ready. She would no longer be the woman everyone thought was excessive, suspicious, and difficult. She had become a key player in the game, and no one could ignore her presence or her abilities. The silence that surrounded the house now held a new meaning. Vicente approached Helena, trying to hide his anguish. "Do you think she's really behind everything? Do you still believe her?" Helena looked at him with a firm gaze without hesitation. "I don't think so anymore, Vicente. I'm sure. And you need to be prepared for what comes next." The tone of her voice made Vicente feel a chill. He knew Helena wasn't joking, but what she was suggesting seemed something he couldn't fully comprehend. He stepped away, trying to absorb her words, but the feeling of helplessness wouldn't leave his mind. As the days passed, the tension increased. Clara was acting more and more impassively, while Helena became more vigilant. Clara's control was slowly breaking down, and Helena knew it was just a matter of time before something grand would happen. She didn't know exactly what, but she believed fate was about to turn once again. The tension in Vicente's house was unbearable. Each passing day seemed to grow heavier, as if the air itself was compressing around everyone, making coexistence almost unsustainable. While Clara remained silent, distant, and seemingly calm, Helena continued her investigation, determined to expose the woman who had caused Mariana's death and the destruction of everything the family had known as normal. Helena was convinced that Clara hadn't finished her revenge. Something in the way she looked at everyone, the way she interacted with Vicente and the other members of the house, made Helena's distrust grow with each passing day. She knew Clara wouldn't be foolish enough to stop now. Clara, with her intelligence and cunning, wasn't just settling for what she had already done. Something bigger was about to happen. On a cold afternoon, Helena decided to confront Clara. It was no longer just a matter of suspicion. She was willing to risk everything to ensure that Vicente's family wouldn't become another victim of Clara's plans. She decided that the time had come to face her. Clara was sitting at the table, reading a book. Helena watched her for a moment before approaching. The silence in the house seemed heavier than ever. When Clara noticed Helena's presence, she looked up, and for a brief instant, something cold flashed in her eyes. "You seem different today, Helena, like you have something on your mind," Clara said, her voice soft but with a hint of disdain. Helena didn't hesitate. "I know what you did, Clara. I know why you're here. I know what you've planned and why you're trying to destroy this family's life." Clara smiled, but there was no humor in her smile. "You don't know anything, Helena. You only know what you want to believe." Helena, however, wasn't intimidated. "I know you're just getting started. You think you'll get away with it, but you won't. You've underestimated my ability to see the truth." Clara put the book aside and slowly stood up, her gaze fixed on Helena's. "You really think you can defeat me? I have control, Helena. I always have." Clara's words fell like stones, heavy and threatening, but Helena didn't move. She knew she had to keep going. She couldn't back down now. "You think you controlled everything, but I see what's happening. I see the flaws in your plan. I know you're not as in control as you think." Helena took a step forward, challenging Clara to deny what she knew. Clara watched her for a moment, her eyes studying every movement, every word Helena spoke. The smile on her face slowly widened. "You're wrong, Helena. You don't know anything about me." Clara's tone was no longer that of a charming and calm woman, but of someone who was beginning to lose control. Helena felt that the turning point had arrived. "You think you've figured me out, but you're far from the truth. Everything you've done so far, every step you've taken, has been part of a much bigger plan than any of you could imagine," Clara said, her voice now almost whispering, but with an indescribable strength. Helena stood still, her gaze fixed on Clara. She knew the woman was revealing more than ever. Clara was giving herself away. She wanted to once again show her power, her dominance. But Helena, more than ever, felt that the answer to everything was right in front of her. "You can't continue with this, Clara. People will find out and then it will be too late. You're no longer in control," Helena stated, her voice firmer than ever. Clara took a step toward Helena, her eyes now sparking with contained anger. "Do you really think you can stop what's already in motion? You have no idea what's coming, Helena. I'm not a piece in a game. I am the player." Helena, unafraid, stood her ground. "But everyone has a weak point, Clara, even you, and your weak point is your obsession with the past. You can't let it go, and while you're doing that, you're going to make a mistake." Helena's words sounded like a deep and painful truth, and Clara, for the first time, seemed to falter. She took a deep breath, trying to hide the growing tension, but there was no denying it anymore. She was losing ground. At that moment, Vicente entered the room, interrupting the confrontation between the two women. His gaze shifted from Helena to Clara, but he said nothing. Vicente's silence once again hung over the atmosphere. Helena turned to him, her face determined. "It's time to make a decision, Vicente. You need to face what's happening here. You need to understand that Clara isn't who you think she is. She's not here to be saved. She never wanted that." Clara, now closer, gave a low, ironic laugh. "And you think any of you have control over what's going to happen? You don't know what's coming." Helena turned to Clara and firmly replied, "I know more than you think." The atmosphere in the room was thick, tense, like a rope about to snap. Helena knew the final confrontation was near. The game of truths was starting to unfold, and this time no one would leave unscathed. The night was suffocating, as if the air was weighing down on everyone still living in Vicente's house. The shadows on the walls seemed denser than ever, reflecting the unrest passing through each of their minds. Vicente, after the confrontation between Helena and Clara, found himself in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. His trust in Clara, which had once seemed unshakable, was now completely shattered. But at the same time, he felt guilty, as if he had failed to protect his family. What more could he have done? How did he not see the signs? The pain and regret consumed him. Helena, however, felt stronger with each passing day. She knew that what was about to happen couldn't be undone, but at the same time, she felt she was about to free herself from a nightmare that seemed to last an eternity. She had already proven her truth, and now all that remained was to ensure that Clara's lie would be destroyed once and for all. Clara, for her part, was on the brink of madness. The woman who once seemed so serene, charming, and invincible now showed clear signs of desperation. She knew the control was slipping from her hands. The weeks of manipulation and deceit, the meticulously planned strategies, everything was crumbling before her, and once again she found herself face to face with the reflection of her own failure. There was no one left to trust, not even Vicente, who had once offered her a new life. That night, Vicente's family was called to a decisive meeting. Helena, with her firm posture, knew the moment had come. When everyone gathered in the living room, with Vicente's tense face and unease in the air, Helena wasted no time. "It's time for you to tell the truth, Clara," Helena said, her voice firm, but not without a touch of exhaustion. "There's no more room for lies." Clara, standing in front of everyone, looked at her with a smile that was more of a nervous laugh. "You think I'm going to surrender? That I'm going to admit something you'll never understand? No, Helena. You don't know anything about me." But Helena's gaze was unwavering. "I know enough to know you're not here by accident, Clara. I know who you really are." Vicente, still in shock from everything that had happened, finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, full of pain and confusion. "What do you mean, Helena? What story is this?" Helena took a step forward, her posture challenging as Clara watched with growing anger. "Clara isn't here out of kindness. She didn't come to be saved. She came to destroy our family." The air in the room seemed to freeze. Clara, who had been trying to remain calm, now seemed to have lost all composure. "You don't know what you're saying. I did this because you all deserved it. You all deserved it. All of you." She turned to Vicente, her eyes burning with rage. "You, with your perfect life, all your mistakes, your sister who kept ignoring the problems. Mariana, she was in my way, and now she's out." Helena took another step closer. "You can't hide your hatred anymore, Clara. You can't control the story any longer. Everyone here knows you planned every step to destroy us." In a fit of fury, Clara tried to approach Helena, but was interrupted by Vicente, who finally, with eyes full of pain and distrust, said, "Enough, Clara. I don't want to hear your lies anymore. If you have an explanation, now is the time." Clara fell silent for a long moment before finally giving in. She knew she had reached the end of the line. There was no turning back. Her plans had failed, and she could no longer run. I planned everything," she said, her voice now quieter but still full of rage. "I was deceived, betrayed. I lived in a world that destroyed me. What I did to all of you, it was for revenge." Vicente looked at her with sad but firm eyes. "You used our good faith, Clara. You used my heart and everyone's to manipulate the family." Helena, for her part, didn't let her guard down. "Now everyone knows who you are. There are no more secrets, no more disguises." Clara, seeing her facade completely shattered, didn't try to hide the truth anymore. She looked at Vicente one last time and, with a smile that seemed more like a sigh of defeat, said, "I lost. Now, you know." What remained for Clara was the void. The revenge she had longed for brought no relief, only destruction. She was alone. In a final gesture, Clara walked out the door without saying a word, disappearing into the night that consumed her. The family, now rebuilt in a different way, breathed a heavy sigh of relief, but what had happened would never be forgotten. The mystery Clara had represented, the truth she had concealed, was now as clear as daylight. Helena, though still carrying the weight of emotional scars, knew her role had been vital. She had become the savior of the family, not through strength, but through the courage to question, to not accept falsehood. As the sun rose on the horizon, Vicente's house seemed quieter. But it was a different silence now. It was the silence of truth, the end of a cycle of lies and manipulations. And despite everything that had happened, Helena knew that deep down, her mission had been fulfilled. The truth always finds a way, no matter how long it takes to be revealed. So, what did you think of this twist? Clara, a woman who seemed like the solution to all the family's problems, turned out to be the real threat. Her story, full of mysteries, manipulations, and revenge, highlighted the importance of questioning what seems perfect at first glance. And Helena, with her distrust and courage, was the one who truly saved the family. But at any point, did you also believe Clara's story? Or did you feel that something wasn't right? Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this story full of tension and mystery. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this amazing story. Hit the bell to stay updated on all the upcoming news. Now we want to hear from you. When did Helena realize Clara was behind everything? And what do you think motivated such a sudden change in her attitude? Do you think she suspected Clara from the start? Or was it something she only realized over time? Leave your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think about this conclusion. See you in the next video.